Most people suffer from this trait and a bunch of them don't know it. And the other thing, I think a lot of people think that this is a positive thing, but I'm here to tell you perfectionism is actually not maybe that much of a positive thing. And it's also not just wanting to get perfect grades in high school. It can actually be what stops you from making big changes in life. So let's talk about perfectionism today. I'm going to explain to you how it actually is probably a lot different than what you were expecting. So grab your tea and let's go. Perfectionism has been a huge thing in my life. I did not even realize it. If you had said to me, "You're a perfectionist," I would have been like, "What are you talking about? I got not great grades in school, like they were fine." But the interesting thing is, ask yourself this: how many times have you wanted to do something, but something has stopped you? Often that something is actually perfectionism. Like, who knew, right? Perfectionism is often defined as the need to be or to appear perfect. But the funny thing is that the people actually think that you could even achieve perfection. Like, nobody can achieve perfection. Like, come on. Perfectionism is believed to be a positive trait rather than a flaw. And people may use the term healthy perfectionism to describe or to even justify this perfectionistic behavior.
Let's see what it looked like in the old spot. Just to compare. Let's see. Ha! Well, it looks good there too. Let's just leave it there for a while.
I mean, it's possible, but I actually don't think that that is perfectionism. I think that that is just having good standards, values, or even habits. So we'll get into the perfectionist test in a little bit. Are you seeing yourself in any of this stuff? I'm just kind of curious. Now, Brené Brown says that perfectionism is not the same thing as striving to be your best. Like, what? Perfectionism is not about healthy achievement and growth. She explains that perfectionism is used by so many of us as a shield to protect against judgment, shame, pain, all of that. So for me, perfectionism has actually left me with some unrealistic expectations in so many areas of my life. And so these are things that I'm struggling with a little bit, and I really want to know if you can relate to any of this. So I had no idea that I was such a hardcore perfectionist. But when I think back to relationships, like, come on. When I was single, I had a glorious 3-year period where I lived in a nice little basement suite and I worked shift work. I was able to, like, my life revolved around my work schedule. It was wonderful. I would watch romantic movies, rom-coms, if you will. I really, really loved, like, Bridget Jones's Diary, Mr. Darcy, Mark Darcy. He was really quite perfect, other than seeming a little snobby, right? Almost all of these movies, like, these people are just perfect, but it's really quite unrealistic. I mean, it does not show what happens after they fall in love. Like, what is real life? So I would expect my husband to be perfect in so many areas, and that he was not allowed to have bad days, and he always had to, like, want to do all of the chores and all of these things. Meanwhile, 18 years later, I have come to realize that that is 100% not realistic. We have a wonderful relationship, but it took me a while to understand that he was not going to be that perfect person like they were in the movies. And I don't know why I thought that, but part of it, I think, does come down to perfection and expecting that within relationships. So let me know if you have fallen into the trap of the rom-com. Another thing that I really struggled with was starting things. I used to wait for things to be absolutely perfect before I would start anything. Like for decluttering. When I wanted to declutter, I would be like, okay, like, it has to be the perfect day and I have to have, like, the full day available. And where am I going to take this stuff? Like, I have to know it. And I mean, I naturally am a little bit of a planner, and I do find planning does help in a lot of things. If planning is holding you back from actually starting something and getting it done, that is going to really hold you back. So I've had people tell me in the past, like, they want to be sure they had the right charity, they had the right bins, like they had to have all the right boxes. Meanwhile, in reality, for a lot of things in life, you just need to start. Like, when I am coaching my life and focus clients, I'm like, just start. Like, what can you start today? Instead of being like, oh, let's jump in. So one of the biggest things that comes from perfectionism is procrastination. So in my work, sometimes I want to make sure I have like the perfect idea, the perfect script. I would spend a really long time lying in my bed, because that's where I do my best thinking, coming up with like different subjects. And I mean, it's a good idea to actually be prepared, but if it's stopping you from starting something, that is not a good thing. I really was perfectionistic about a lot of things. Say I wanted to start kayaking, and this is actually a true story. I needed to have the perfect life jacket, the perfect kayak, the perfect paddle, and it's not like I was like, I deserve to have the perfect thing. I was like, this is how it has to be. Meanwhile, I could have just rented. I could have just had some lessons. I could have just like started. And I can be like that in a lot of different areas. And what's worse, when I moved into the courses and the coaching, I wanted to be sure I had the perfect website, the perfect emails. And I didn't need those things to coach. I really just needed me and my clients just to start. Now I have finally recognized when I am being a bit of a perfectionistic procrastinatosaurus. One of the things that I struggle with a lot is making to-do lists. I love to-do lists. They're very helpful. But if I'm not careful, I will put way too many things on the list for the day. And if I don't get those things done, then I feel bad about myself. So instead, what I will do is be very reasonable. I will really think, like, how long do I think this will take? I will assign times, because I really love to make lists and schedules. But if I get extra things done, like on the side, I'll have other things I want to get done for the week or the month or whatever. And if I have the time, I will do those things. Another thing a lot of people feel like they have to be a perfectionist or be perfect in is to be perfect in society's eyes as far as like appearance goes. I don't think I ever really felt like that. I mean, I'm a short girl with curly hair, two typical non-perfect things that are hard to change, especially in the 90s. Like in the 90s, everybody wanted straight hair. It was really hard to get back then. The flat irons were not what they are today. And I truly, after 4+ decades, really like my curly hair. And most of the time I like being short. And it helps that my husband is taller than me. A lot of people, they feel that pressure to be perfect from society. And, like growing up with the magazines, I don't even know what the young ones, where their pressure comes from, if they have any, right? But you have to recognize, like, what is perfectionism? What is like being like, I want to be perfect. It has to be perfect before I start, all of these things. And what is just sort of like having good standards? For me, I now recognize I have priorities. My priorities, like number one, I have my health, mental and physical for sure. There's the family and what needs to be done. Is it okay? Like I will show you my kitchen right now. It's a little messy, really gross. There's a garbage can lid on the counter. And the garbage is on the counter. There's also no sink. We're getting new counters installed and we had to measure the sink, but I am doing really well. I'm doing well. That is not ideal, obviously, living with the kitchen like this. It bothers me. Like I am definitely the type of person that doesn't roll with the punches as easily as some people, but I have to say to myself, like, this is fine. That's fine. It's going to be okay. Okay, so let's get into the test. These are actually just a couple of things that I have come across that could show that you have some kind of perfectionistic tendencies, and then you're going to want to decide what you're going to do with it. So first, focusing on what you did wrong versus all of the awesome things you did right. I have done this many times. Second, having trouble celebrating other people's wins or having trouble celebrating your own wins. Giving up when things aren't going perfectly. Focusing on the end result versus enjoying the journey. This is an absolutely huge one. And a lot of people, when they get that end result, they're sort of like, okay, moving on, instead of like being like, I'm going to enjoy this. Do you avoid starting new things? Maybe amazing things that could make your life incredible and change it forever. And trying to get all of the things done, putting so much pressure on yourself, that can be a bad thing. If you feel like you identify with some of these things, you might be a perfectionist. You may want to talk to a counselor. You might be in the point where you just need to talk to a coach where you can really like get your life on track and get to meeting those goals. But recently I decided that I was going to slow my life way down and I removed a lot of commitments and a bunch of other things. So check out that video here. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.